between breath and silence, a confession that shook the army world. What happens when a secret refuses to stay buried, when it no longer hides inside a chest, but slips out through the eyes of someone who's mastered the art of silence? They stood beneath the soft glow of cameras, but not for a song promotion, not for the next big project. This time, the cameras bore witness to something far beyond a routine interview. They caught the exact moment a friend, Kim Taehyung, known to the world as V, finally spoke the words no one else dared to say. "Jungkook can't live without Jimin." That sentence dropped like the sound of glass cracking in an empty room. No dramatic music. No colored spotlights. Just a pause. Stillness. And Taehyung's eyes cutting through the surface of reality, piercing straight into the heart of truth. The reporters fell quiet, like they suddenly realized they weren't interviewing an idol anymore, but sitting in front of someone holding an emotional bomb, and choosing to place it gently on the table. And we, the army, the viewers, the lovers, the critics, were invited to witness the explosion. For years, the story of Jungkook and Jimin was told in laughter and togetherness. In backstage vlogs, in cryptic lyrics, in fleeting hugs captured by lucky fans. But who would have thought it would be Taehyung of all people who pulled back the curtain? Was it a warning? Or a confession? Taehyung knew the world loves stories of friendship. The world is comfortable with bromance, just enough to warm the heart, but never enough to shake the ground beneath us. But what Taehyung said didn't sound like fan service. It sounded like a man who had been watching a wound bleed quietly for far too long. And that wound was named dependency. In a shocking follow-up report, 2 major South Korean outlets released psychological analyses of Jungkook's behavior. One former HYBE staff member said, "We used to call it Code Blue. If Jimin wasn't around, Jungkook would begin to lose control. He'd get restless. Everyone knew. We had to locate Jimin immediately or the whole atmosphere would shift." Is this love? Is it unresolved trauma? No one can say for sure. But everyone feels it. This is not ordinary friendship. Suddenly, memories came flooding back. When Jungkook refused to sleep unless he knew where Jimin was. When he sat beside him even when there were dozens of empty seats. When his voice changed slightly, almost tender, whenever he said that name, Jimin. One line from Taehyung cracked open an entire gallery of fandom memories. Old clips became new puzzles. And rising from the archive was a long-deleted livestream, where Jimin with a shy laugh once said, "If I ever left this world, I think Jungkook would follow." Back then it was a joke. But today it stabs deeper. Like truth wrapped in laughter. Like a wound we never realized was still bleeding. Fans began to ask, hearts anxious yet full of wonder. Is this an unspeakable kind of love? Or a soul-level connection that the world has never fully understood? A Japanese media outlet close to BTS wrote, "Jungkook's dependency on Jimin isn't new. What's new is Taehyung's courage to finally speak it out loud." And from that moment the world shifted. The army divided. Some welcomed it as long overdue honesty. Others trembled, fearing that love this deep could never survive the spotlight. That it was too fragile to live where cameras never stop rolling. But the one thing no one could deny was Jimin's silence. He said nothing. Not on Weverse. Not in a livestream. Not through cryptic messages or coded lyrics. Just one quiet smile when Jungkook's name was mentioned. But it wasn't joy. It was the smile of someone who knows his heart has just been exposed to the entire world, and can do nothing but smile. And now we all ask, does Jimin know he is Jungkook's anchor in this world? Was Taehyung sending an emotional SOS because someone is starting to drown? Is this the beginning of a love that never dared speak its name? Or the unraveling of a bond built too heavily on one person? In K-pop, we often forget that behind every smile is a human. And humans are fragile. Jungkook, who seems invincible on stage, might be hiding storms in his eyes. Jimin, who hugs every member like it's second nature, might not even realize that his touch is the only thing keeping someone sane. And Taehyung, who chose to speak into a camera instead of staying quiet, may have carried this fear alone for too long. This is no longer about who loves whom. This is about who breathes for whom. Who becomes home when the world gets too loud. And who becomes the one reason to stay when everything else starts to fall apart. Jungkook and Jimin, 2 names that can no longer be spoken without every army heart skipping a beat. And Taehyung? He isn't just a witness. He might be the silent rescuer of a love story too complex, too sacred, and too fragile for any of us to fully understand. Because love isn't always about holding on. Sometimes, it's about knowing when to say, "He can't live without you." And we can only hope Jimin hears it this time. After the storm, when one sentence unravels the soul of a fandom. After Taehyung's storm of a statement, the world didn't settle into silence, it trembled. Every corner of forums, fan bases, and social media turned into an emotional crime scene. Everyone was asking the same thing. What's really happening in the heart of the magne who's always seemed unbreakable? But no one could answer. Because Jungkook said nothing. Not because he didn't want to, but maybe because he didn't know where to begin. For years, the world called him the Golden Magne, the all-rounder, the strong one, the shining pride of a generation. But behind all the applause and spotlight, there was always one face he searched for first after every performance. One voice that could calm the storm in his chest without saying a single word. One hand on his shoulder that could keep him standing when everything inside was collapsing. Jimin. To the public, their closeness was just the charm of idol dynamics. But to Taehyung, maybe it was more. Maybe it was life's lifeline. Because the world never sees a man's breaking point. Only the person who's held him through silent tears does. And who would know that better than Taehyung? Now the spotlight has quietly shifted. Not only to Jungkook but to Jimin, the one who's remained silent ever since Taehyung's words shattered the air. Some see that silence as discomfort. But others recognize it as a deeper kind of pain. The kind of silence that only comes when you know the truth too well. But can't say it without falling apart. A body language expert invited to a special broadcast described Jimin's expression when Jungkook's name was mentioned as a pain too real to be allowed to show. Like someone holding his breath just to keep from breaking, a fan wrote. And day by day more fans are beginning to realize. Maybe Jimin isn't just important to Jungkook. Maybe Jungkook is the only place where Jimin doesn't have to be perfect. So what does all this mean? Are we witnessing the birth of a love that was never allowed to speak? Or the slow unraveling of two souls who've been holding each other together in silence? One thing's for sure. The world changed the moment that sentence was spoken. ARMY began re-archiving everything. Old clips. Forgotten interactions. The lingering glances, the quick hugs, the unsaid words hidden in lyrics they once sang together. Even past lyrics now sound like confessions in disguise. Don't leave me, I'm nothing without you. It doesn't feel like a song lyric anymore. It feels like a plea. Not from an artist to a fan, but from one heart to another. And what about Taehyung? Was he just a witness? Or was he trying to protect something? Some fans now believe that Taehyung didn't speak just out of concern. He spoke out of fear. Fear of losing something he's quietly seen for years. The bond between two people who keep each other alive. But who could also destroy each other if they fall too deep with no one to catch them. Because love that isn't allowed to be named isn't just heartbreaking, it's dangerous. Unofficial sources even claim that HYBE debated whether to release a clarifying statement. But so far there's only silence. And in that silence, speculation has run wild. But underneath it all, one thing feels undeniable. Something is shifting, not in the world but inside the heart of Jungkook. A change is happening within Jungkook, a Japanese outlet wrote. And maybe we're witnessing that. Not a career shift. Not a musical evolution. But a soul cracking open, when a person finally realizes that what they need to survive isn't the roar of the crowd anymore, but the presence of someone who's been their breath all along. Now the world can only wait. Will Jimin respond? Will Jungkook speak? Or will it all fade back behind the curtain of rehearsed smiles and carefully scripted broadcasts? But one thing can't be undone. The truth has been spoken. And time won't rewind. Because love that's buried too long always finds a way to surface. And sometimes it begins with a single devastating sentence from a friend who can no longer carry the weight of silence. Jungkook can't live without Jimin. Maybe it wasn't a statement. Maybe it was a prayer. Or a plea. Or even a warning. If you've read this far, maybe you feel it too. This isn't just another idol story. This isn't fan service or fantasy. This is about humans. About a love that has no name. About a loss that hasn't happened, but already aches in the chest. Share it. Comment. Keep it to yourself if you must. But don't forget, love like this doesn't come around twice. And if we're quiet enough, we'll hear the world whispering to us. Through tone, through glances, through one sentence that will echo louder than any chart-topping song. Jungkook can't live without Jimin. And maybe, just maybe, Jimin knows that too. But he's not ready to answer. Not yet.